Welcome back to Mountain Lake Files. We all know about UFOs, UAPs, and what the Pentagon says about that. But tonight's encounter story is from Terry Lovelace, a retired assistant attorney general in Vermont of USA in America. And he's also the author of The Incident at Devil's Den. And he kept his abduction to himself for 40 years due to fear of losing his job. He had a close encounter in 1977 while serving in the U.S. Air Force. Lovelace, now 67, was on a camping trip in Devil's Den State Park in northern Arkansas with a friend and colleague named Toby when things got strange. They were sitting around a fire, struggling to chat over the din of buzzing crickets and croaking tree frogs before everything went quiet. That sounds kind of cliched out of a movie, but that is exactly what happened to us, he says. 3 bright lights appeared on the horizon and moved in their direction. When the lights were overhead, they could see that they were emanating from a black triangular prism as wide as 2 city blocks. A blue laser beam darted over them, which Lovelace thought was scanning them. When it shut off, they became sleepy. Next thing, he woke up and saw Toby peering out of the tent. The triangle was hovering above what appeared to be a dozen children standing in a meadow below them. "What are these kids doing out in the middle of the night?" said Lovelace. "They aren't little kids. Don't you remember? They took us and they hurt us," Toby answered. Lovelace says the moment Toby said that, fragmented memories of being inside the UFO flashed in his mind. Years later, hypnosis helped him fill in more blanks, and he recalled actually encountering creatures while inside the UFO. For some, the fact that the Pentagon has finally admitted it cannot explain the behavior of the objects may have been a surprise, but for PC Alan Godfrey, 73, it merely proves what he already knows. On a windswept and wet West Yorkshire evening in November 1980, Godfrey was in hot pursuit of a herd of escaped cows. Instead of cows, he stumbled across a giant levitating diamond that would change the course of his life. Godfrey's close encounter with this UFO went viral worldwide and transformed into Britain's Roswell. Godfrey, a no-nonsense Yorkshire man born and raised in Oldham, is a retired from the Air Force, but still recalls the events that took place that night when he came face to face with a peculiar object, a diamond-shaped aircraft hovering 5 feet off the ground while spinning on its axis. He just had time to sketch the UFO on his notepad before he was blinded. In the next moment of conscious awareness, he was sitting in his patrol car. The UFO was gone. He says, "I got out of the car, looked at the road surface, and it was like a whirlpool," he said. The UFO's rapid revolutions had arranged the dead leaves, twigs, and other debris into an autumn-themed spiral. In the aftermath of his encounter, he had visits from the Ministry of Defense, correspondence from a Russian scientist, and interest from the world's press. He even underwent hypnosis to uncover memories of his abduction. Godfrey was ridiculed for years. Many who claim to have had encounters with UFOs are reluctant to go on the record for fear of the same treatment. But things are changing. High-ranking government officials such as Christopher Mellon, a former U.S. Secretary for Defense and Intelligence, and Luis Elizondo, former director of AATIP, insists there are aircraft in our skies that don't obey the known laws of physics. I mean, let's face it, even Barack Obama has gone on record on the subject talking to CBS this year, which was actually in 2021. There's footage and records of objects in the skies that we don't know exactly what they are. We can't explain how they moved, their trajectory. They did not have an easy explanation of pattern. And so, I think that people still take seriously trying to investigate and figure out what this is. But I have nothing to report to you today. So that was a quote from him from the past. So, June 2021, the Pentagon in America finally released some reports of what they felt they could. When it comes to abduction stories, skeptics will say these encounters are either hoaxes or accounts of vivid dreams or hallucinations. Christopher French, professor of psychology at Goldsmiths University of London, has spent years studying the paranormal and argues that sleep paralysis is a better explanation for many of these stories. In some cases, you get associated symptoms, and they include a sense of presence, a very strong feeling that something is in the room with you. French says he adds that sufferers might hallucinate and see strange lights moving around the room, or strange figures or shadow people. Okay, well, I'm going to stop right there because many of these people aren't in their bedroom having sleep paralysis during sleep. Many of these people are with other people out in nature, where there's tents and camping involved and no one's been sleeping yet. But that doesn't fit for Godfrey's story. He was driving and on duty at the time. I think in Alan Godfrey's case, he was sleep deprived. He had been on duty a long time. The most likely explanation in some kind of hallucinatory experience due to tiredness, says French. What about the story he told under hypnosis? The thing with hypnotic regression is that it is one of the best ways known to generating false memories. If you go for hypnotic regression, expecting to recover memories of an alien abduction, there's a very good chance that's what you'll get. So see here, there's different people that have different opinions. But again, just like we tell the stories of our encounters of people who have seen Bigfoot or Dogman or a skinwalker, it's their encounter. And who are these people to say for sure that that's what's really going on? I personally believe that these people are telling the truth of what they experienced. But Nick Pope, a former UFO investigator for the Ministry of Defense, is not convinced and thinks that Godfrey is genuine. He had a lot to potentially lose by coming out with this, and yet stuck to his guns. Doesn't a hallucination explain what he saw? I get that people do have hallucinations, but they tend to be a result of either mental illness or some sort of hallucinogenic substance. And this guy was on duty and was by all counts rational. And so those explanations don't seem to apply. I'm stumped when it comes to that particular case. Ask yourself, how many times have you been tired and come to an end of a long day? We've all been in that situation, and we don't suddenly construct bizarre narratives about spacecraft and aliens. So, I think it's time to start talking and taking these stories more seriously. I'm not saying that I believe it's literally true that there are alien spaceships or aliens, but at the very least, these people who were previously disbelieved and ridiculed should be listened to and given a hearing. For everyone who tells you these people are attention seekers after fame and fortune, I would say, what fame? What fortune? Who outside the UFO community has heard of Alan Godfrey or Terry Lovelace? I don't know, but I'm certain that they are out there. But wherever they are, down here or not, I don't know. I think it's much more likely that we're dealing with maybe unmanned probes, or if not hallucinations, equipment glitches or mistakes. Many will say black ops conducted by the US, China, Russia, or other militaries are a more plausible explanation than aliens. I accept that most military personnel won't have sight of every single black project and therefore won't necessarily know about every secret prototype, aircraft, or drone that's flying. But the military and government and the intelligence community have a pretty good idea of roughly where the ceiling is in terms of technology. So, when these expert military witnesses describe the sorts of speed, accelerations, maneuvers that are reported with these sorts of incidences, I sit up and I take note. These stories, many of the people who tell them believe they are real, and some suffer from severe mental illness in the aftermath, not before. Chris French says the level of psychological arousal in people living with PTSD go through the roof when they're asked to retell their stories. If you do the same thing with the alien abductee, you get the same thing. Lovelace's night in Devil's Den changed his life and the life of his friend Toby. The U.S. Air Force got wind of their ordeal and, per military protocol, separated and reassigned them. Lovelace ignored his orders and visited Toby to say goodbye. Toby was falling apart. Lovelace says the two embraced. Toby said, "It happened, didn't it?" "Yes, my brother, it really happened. You're not losing your mind," Lovelace replied. Loveless has suffered enormously since that night. Spent 40 years of nightmares and says I still have a phobia of crossing open ground. I still sleep with a light on and a gun beside my bed, but he feels vindicated by acknowledgments made by the U.S. government, military personnel, and Obama. I've got a long list of people that I'm going to email and say, I told you so. For Godfrey, it's 40 years too late. About what he saw that morning. And Todd Morden, I've had all sorts. You fell into some sort of trance when you were driving, all that crap. No, it was real. It left debris on the road. My headlights were reflecting off it, as were the blue lights. This was a real incident. I didn't need the Pentagon to tell me there are things out there. I know what I saw that night was real. Nuts and bolts. If I'd go out and throw a brick at it, it wouldn't have gone clean. It doesn't change, or it would have gone clean. It doesn't change what happened to me and how I was treated back then. So when y'all hear encounters like this from men and women who in their history have never had any major health problems, and even if they have, I feel everyone should at least be listened to. What do you all believe about lights in the sky? If you have any encounters that you or someone you know have personally encountered and you would like to tell your story, you can email me at apocalypticfairy@gmail.com. My email's on the screen and also in the description of this video. We would be really interested in hearing about your encounter, and there'll be no judgment here. Have a blessed day, everyone, and a blessed night wherever it is that you live. We all live under the same skies, on the same earth, where we go about our days and nights together, no matter how many miles apart. We're still made from the same. And I believe there are things out there that aren't explained yet. But the people who have gone through experiences know a lot better than the ones who have not gone through these experiences. I personally have seen strange lights in the sky, ones that are white and have an opalescence to them and don't move quite right. I've seen red lights in the sky that make no noise. I've heard hoots and hollers here in the Adirondacks that I have never, ever in all my life heard before until 2019. And I can't help but believe, after being so skeptical for so many years, that also the lights in the sky correlate with these beings on the ground, like Bigfoot.